Hi there, everyone. I'm Nick Nason, an immigration lawyer and owner of Edgewater Legal, which is a specialist immigration law firm. I'm joined by Jill McKerney, our senior immigration solicitor and hugely experienced business immigration lawyer. Can you say hello, Jill?
Hi.
So in this video, we're going to go through the process of applying for a certificate of sponsorship via the Home Office Sponsor Management System, known as the SMS. This is the process you need to go through if you want to hire a foreign national on a skilled worker visa. And the CoS, the certificate of sponsorship, is a unique reference number, which that person's going to need when they make their visa application. And they're not going to be able to make their visa application without it. So we're going to look at some common problem areas of this process, such as choosing the start and end dates of the sponsorship, choosing the right SOC code and working out the minimum salary, and what to put in the job description. So this video is intended as a guide for sponsors who already have a license and access to their own SMS. If you don't have a license, you're going to need to go and get one before you can sponsor any foreign workers. The process we're going to be looking at today is specifically to sponsor a worker who is based outside of the UK. If you want to hire a worker based in the UK, this is a separate, different process, and we're going to be aiming to prepare a different presentation on that. So whilst we've done our best to ensure that everything, all the content in the video is accurate at the time of recording, the rules and guidance may have changed by the time you watched it. So you should always check the rules and guidance at the time of your application. And especially this year, 2024, a lot is going on in immigration law and a lot is changing. So this video is intended to provide general guidance. It's not legal advice. And you should always seek legal advice on your individual circumstances if you feel you need to. This process in particular can have some complexities, and we're going to be focusing here on just the key points, and we don't cover all of the rules and guidance that you may need to know. So, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be the owner of a health and wellness business, and I'm looking to hire an in-house life coach at a salary of, say, 30,000 per year for a full-time role. And we've agreed to hire them initially for a period of 3 years. So I'm going to just take us to the SMS, which is here. So Jill, I'm the level 1 user for this license, and I've logged onto the SMS using my level 1 user name and password, which I got from the Home Office when they gave us the license. So what do I do now to sponsor my life coach?
Great. So before I tell you what to do next, firstly, I wanted to flag that some of you will be aware that there is such thing as an annual allocation of certificates, and that is for what's called the undefined certificate of sponsorship. I'm going to call a CoS process. And so what we're doing for those people applying from outside the UK as skilled worker, we're using the defined CoS process. And we have to request an allocation each time we want to assign a certificate when using the defined route. And that's the process that we're looking at here. So how to request a defined CoS. Okay. And after this request is granted, we're going to need to assign the defined CoS, and we're going to do a separate presentation on how to assign. So this is just the request part. So, Nick, if you can go to the left-hand side drop-down list and see where workers is written, if you click on that link.
Yep.
Great. And then you can see on the left-hand side again below that defined CoS.
Okay.
And apply for a defined CoS.
All right.
Perfect. And you'll see that the category is grayed out, and that's because we already have that completed, so we don't need to do that, just ignore that bit. And then in the textbook, we're applying for 1, so you just put 1 and then click next. Great. Okay. So we'll start with the work dates, and you've got here, so you need to put in a start and an end date. So I think the first point to note is that you can apply for any period of up to 5 years, but the visa length that you choose is going to impact the cost, the visa cost. And so that is a really key point here when we're choosing the dates. So I'm going to just talk about what the visa fees are that are going to be impacted. Firstly, you have the immigration skills charge, and that is payable per year of the visa. That has to be paid by the sponsor, and you must not pass that on to the individual, that cost. And that is £364 for a small business per year of the visa, or a charity, or £1,000 per year for a medium or large sponsor. So the second charge is the immigration health surcharge, and that can be paid by either the sponsor or the employee. And that is also payable for each dependent family member per year of the visa. And now that health surcharge is increasing quite substantially in early February from £624 per adult per year to £1,035, and then for children 470 to 776. So that's something to note, that is going to be increasing.
So for the skills charge, when am I paying the skills charge? Can you just
Yeah, that's a good question. So the skills charge will be paid after we made this request. It will take around 1 to 2 business days for the request to be approved, hopefully, and then you will then have to assign the certificates, and at that stage you'll need to pay the skills charge and the certificate sponsorship fee.
Okay, so if I'm employing him for 3 years, I need to pay 3 times £364 at that stage. Is that right?
Exactly, upfront. Yeah.
And the immigration health surcharge, am I paying that now or am I paying that later? If I'm
once the certificate is assigned, the individual will use that to make their visa application, and then the immigration health surcharge and the visa application fee, which I'll come to a second, have to be paid at the time of submitting that application. And again, that is upfront for the 3 years that you pay at this stage.
And as the employer, do I have to pay that, or can the person who's being employed and making the visa application, can they pay that?
Yeah, so for the skills charge, as I said, the business has to pay that fee. For the health surcharge, you can decide whether the sponsor, many sponsors do cover that, but it's not mandatory. They can pass that part or that cost on to the employee.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Great. And so then we have the visa application fee. And so that will vary depending on whether you apply for a visa of up to 3 years or more than 3 years. So it's double the cost if you apply for more than 3 years than if you apply for up to 3 years. In terms of that particular application fee. So and that again is paid at the time that the individual submits their visa application, along with the health surcharge.
So once we've gone through the application for this CoS and we've assigned it to the individual, they're then paying the health surcharge and the application fee as part of their visa application process. That's a different process.
Exactly.
Okay. Understood.
Great.
Cool. Understood.
Great. So we've decided based on all of that you're going to go for 3 years in this case. So you need to think of what's your start date going to be, and you need to put in a realistic start date, which will depend on what the visa processing times will be in the country where the person's applying. So we will give an estimate based on the circumstances at the time. But let's say, just for the purposes of this application, that will go for the 11th of March as a start date, 2024.
Okay. So we're having a conversation on the 22nd of January. So what's that? About 6 weeks away?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm on this basis. So the standard processing time is often around 3 weeks outside the UK, and then it just depends on how long it will take you to get the documents together for us to put the application together. And also you've got to factor in, you may need to attend an appointment in that country. So that's a kind of a realistic kind of time frame, but it may be that we could do it more quickly, or that it might take longer depending on your circumstances and when the person is wanting to move as well.
Is it possible? Is it possible to expedite the visa application process?
Yes, so it depends on whether it's available in the country you're applying for at that time. But for skilled worker, there's normally a priority process available. And that normally means that decision is made within 5 working days of when the authorities receive your application. And that will be after you've attended an appointment if you have to in that country.
Okay, understood.
Great. So in terms of the end date, to make it, if we want to go for 3 years, to make sure it's not we're not applying for more than 3 years, you have to put in the 10th of March in this example. So it would be exactly 3 years, and 3 year time in 2027. Great. So there's just some key points just to flag here. Once you assign this certificate, the person has to apply for the visa within 3 months, and they can't apply more than 3 months before their intended work start date. So, and then also once it's assigned, once you've assigned the certificate, you can make some small changes to the details, including the start and end dates. But there is quite limited what details you can change and when you can change them. And because that's quite complex, we're going to make a separate presentation on changes to the certificate of sponsorship after it's assigned. But that's something to be really aware of before you assign it.
Understood.
Great. So if the next box we have is a job title. I think you've got your.
So he's the in-house life coach. He's already there.
Brilliant. And then so we've got this drop-down list where it says job type. If you just click on that, then you'll see a list of these 4-digit codes and job titles. And they are what's called standard occupational classification codes, or SOC codes. And that's the Office for National Statistics has classified occupations into broad job types and then given them a RQF, or regulated qualifications framework level, so it's skill level. And the government have given that a minimum salary level. So only jobs in SOC codes at RQF level 3 and above, which is equivalent to A level or above, are normally eligible for skilled worker sponsorship. And so it is essential to select the correct code to ensure that the role you're sponsoring in is sufficiently skilled to be sponsored. It's a requirement of the visa that there is a genuine vacancy of a sufficiently skilled role. If the role doesn't match the occupation code that you've given, or if the worker themselves doesn't meet the minimum skill requirement, then their visa application could be delayed or refused, or it could be a ground for revocation even of your sponsor license. So having said how important that is, what we tend to do is consult the ONS job coding tool to try and decide which code we're going to use.
This one?
Exactly.
Okay.
Heard earlier. So if you put the job title in the search box. Great. So got that life coach. It's pretty much. So here we have.
So it comes up as counsellors. Is that right?
Exactly. So you've got a list of day-to-day job duties and a list of job titles. And the important thing to note here is that the job title doesn't need to match exactly the title that you're using. But the more important thing is that you focus on the job tasks and choose which code most closely matches the job tasks in your job description. So that's the day-to-day responsibilities.
So I don't have to write counsellors in here. I can keep this job title like this.
You can keep your own job title, exactly.
Okay, but I have to choose this number.
Exactly. So that code. And so exactly. So you have to choose the code that most closely fits your job role that you have. And you may need to just be able to justify why you think it fits within that code. And if there's more than one that seems to fit, then you need to decide which is the closest.
Okay. Well, it seems pretty clear here. I mean, if the ONS is saying that that's what it is, that's normally a pretty good guide, right?
Yeah, so you do need to look at the job category itself, like the actual job description, and look at whether the roles fit within those tasks, or broadly fit. And if you have any doubts or concerns about whether you've chosen the right one, you can speak to us. We have lots of experience in advising on this.
Okay.
Great. So now we've identified that, we need to check, is it on the list of skilled occupations? So, I mean, firstly, it is in that drop-down list on the defined certificate, so it should be, but we will also go to the immigration rules and check whether it is in the list of eligible skilled occupation. And so we've got this list, and there are there's table 1 and table 2. Table 2 is health roles, which we're not looking at now, but so we're looking at table 1, which is the majority of roles, and you can do a control find for that number.
Okay.
Great. And so there we can see it's in the list of skilled roles, and what we'll come back to in a minute is these salary figures. But for now, we can go back and put in the job description. So this will be a summary, so the main day-to-day job duties.
Okay. So that's not something I have right now, but I'll be able to, I'll just put TBC and then
Perfect.
Put it in later.
Okay. And then what you need to do as well at the end of that job description is put in the weekly working hours for the role. And this is so that they can calculate that you're going to meet the correct minimum salary for that role.
Okay, weekly working hours. Because it doesn't explain anywhere on here that that's what you've got to do. So
yeah, I think it's a problem with the government IT that they have got box in there at this stage, but they still need to know that information.
So just to confirm where that is buried in this guidance, page 49 of sponsor a skilled worker, it says in the summary of job description text box, you must also state the number of working hours will work each week. So that's where that's from, presumably.
Exactly.
Okie doke. So if we say 40 hours.
Great. Okay. So then we're coming on to the salary figure. So we have to put in here the salary figure excluding any allowances or bonuses. So the basic gross salary figure.
So
that you're wanting to pay.
30,000 a year.
Brilliant. So what we need to do is assess, does that meet the minimum skill? And yeah, you can put that in the drop down list if you want to put in that. You have to put in how, that's per year. So, but we need to calculate, does that meet the minimum skill requirements? And then we can go back to the skill list of skilled occupations where we saw that salary figure. So these are the going rates listed here for that particular SOC code. And so there is 3 different salary figures that we need to meet in this visa application. There's the overall minimum salary figure, which is currently 26,200 per year of the visa. But again, the government has announced in December last year that it's going to increase the overall minimum to 38,700 per year of the visa from around April 2024. So that is a substantial increase from 26,000. And it will mean that in some sectors, only the highest ranking jobs will be eligible.
So presumably the guy that we're trying to sponsor now, in April, paying him that amount, we wouldn't be able to sponsor him at that level. Is that right?
Exactly, unless there's some kind of exception that we can come to in a bit. But generally, yeah, that's correct. So you might want to consider at this time, there is the possibility of trying to bring forward the application to submit it before the increase comes in April. So the indication that we have so far, and we can't be certain until the new rules come in, is that if you apply in the skilled worker category before the increase, you can continue under the current salary levels, even if you extend your visa in the skilled worker or change employers in skilled worker. Then you'll still be able to just meet the current, so this current 26,200 minimum. So some people might be wanting to do that now, but obviously after that window, we are going to be looking at having to meet potentially higher salary minimums. So the second rate that you need to meet is the national minimum wage of £10.75 per hour. And then the third one is the going rate. This is the figure that we have here. You need to meet this salary figure. And this going rate is, for table 1, is 37.5 hours per week. So it's based on a 37.5-hour week. So you said, I think, that this person's going to be working a 40-hour week.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. So that means that we have to prorate the minimum salary here, this figure here, up to 40 hours to see what the going rate minimum is for 40 hours. So I've got here 24. Yeah, so it's about 24,000. So yeah, 30,000, it meets the going rate currently and the overall minimum currently. But it won't from April.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to emphasize, I guess, that if you're watching this video after April, then it's likely that that minimum overall salary is going to have gone up. So very important to check the guidance as it stands at the time that you watch this video, and that the minimum salary, by the looks of it, is going to be 38,700 from sometime in April.
So I talked about some exemptions to that. So the overall minimum salary can be lower in some circumstances, such as where someone is a new entrant, which means that they're either aged under 26 or switching from a student or graduate route, or if they're in a shortage occupation.
So these are
yeah, so those are kind of some of the. So I think the shortage occupation is 80%, for example, and then the new entrant is 70%. And then I think there are in some categories where you need a PhD for your job, then you might get the 90% as well. The shortage occupation, the government is now reviewing the shortage occupation category, and they might be removing that lower minimum salary. But those people may still benefit from a slight reduction in application fees. So there's a lot of changes around the minimum salary. So that's something that we'll probably update on, I imagine, nearer the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in this case, we meet the requirement, so we can continue. And then we've got these boxes to do the client contract. So that's where someone is being contracted out to a third party to do work for the sponsor, and that's quite a complex circumstance that we would advise on separately, but it doesn't apply here. So we can just leave that blank, and the text box is blank. So we've assessed that the job is in an eligible occupation code, so we can tick this box, and we know that it's not. This one isn't on the current shortage occupation list, so we can leave that blank.
Okay.
And yeah, so we have to give registration details if there's a legal requirement for the migrant to be registered with a professional or other official organisation in the UK. So this is if the person needs a legal, professional, or other official registration in order to be able to work in the UK. Nick, is that the case here?
No.
Okay, great. So we leave that blank. And finally, we have tick to certify maintenance for migrants and dependents. So it's a requirement for the applicant to show that they can maintain themselves, so support themselves and their family members financially for the first month of their employment in the UK. And however, you have the option here to certify this on their behalf on the CoS. And as you're going to be paying their salary, then it should be fine to certify that they will be able to support themselves. So we always advise to tick this box, and it avoids the individual having to provide quite onerous documents to prove their financial circumstances.
So I guess you're saying it reduces the risk of anything going wrong in the visa application itself because they're having to provide less documents and stuff.
Exactly.
All right. Fine. Happy with that?
Brilliant.
Okay. So then we're good to obviously we would be putting in a detailed job description here.
Exactly.
But if that was done, then we'd move on to the next page.
So here, it's just really important to note, once you've requested this certificate, as I've said, it's very difficult, can be difficult to make changes. You can only make very specific certain changes in certain circumstances. So you would want to just double check at this stage that all of this information is completely accurate.
Okay.
And assuming so it is, then you'll need, as the level 1 user or person assigning or level 2 user, you need to just check that you're comfortable with all of the declaration and conditions. It's highlighting now. So great.
Okay.
And then once you've agreed to those, then you can click on submit at the bottom.
Let's submit at the bottom, which we're obviously not going to do in this that's this video.
Great. So yeah, so you've done that, and as I said earlier, it should take around 1 to 2 business days to get a decision. On occasion, the Home Office can have concerns about the eligibility of the role, in which case they can request further information. They tend to do this in higher scrutiny categories or sectors like hospitality, for example. And then you should receive an email to confirm that it's been granted. So once it's been granted, you can go in and view and assign certificate. You can in the meantime, so you can in the meantime view applications that are awaiting a decision. If you click on that, then you will be able to see that it's pending while you're waiting for a decision. And you can withdraw it if you need to. And then once it's granted, it should be in that granted applications, create and assign defined CoS. And that's where we will separate presentation on how to continue with that process.
If you found that presentation helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment section below. And of course, if you need any assistance with your license or sponsoring workers from overseas, then the best way of reaching us is getting in contact via edgewaterlegal.com.